Okay, everyone, so the first part of what we're going to do here so that we can make this into a media query is we have to add a few items that aren't present in the actual final version of this. So, for example, if we look here up at the top of our exercise, okay, um, I already have it set up here so that we have an external style sheet for this, okay? But I didn't actually externalize the CSS yet. So the first thing I want to do is I want to take all my CSS and I want to put it in an external file. This is kind of best practice, and I'm thinking it's going to be the smartest way for us to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new file here, File New, and I'm going to save it as, right, it's going to automatically push me into my folder here, and I'm going to save it as style.css. Now there's my external style sheet, style.css. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of the CSS from my file here, and I'm going to migrate it. I'm just going to copy it all, everything between the opening style tag and the closing style tag, and I am going to say let's cut that, and then I'm going to go into my style.css file and I'm going to paste it, okay, and then I'll say file, save all, and I will just double check to make sure that my code is still working. So if I go here and refresh that, okay, you'll see here is my file and it is still working, okay. So now all of my CSS has been externalized into this particular file called style.css. Now you may have noticed that I have a second CSS file here called typography.css. We're going to be looking at that in the next exercise, okay? So just keep that there in mind for now, and we'll link that up in a few minutes, okay? But let's go back to our index now. Now I probably have some cleaning here I can do. So for example, I no longer need these style tags, so I'm just going to take them out, okay? And now that I externalized my styles, and now what we need to do is we need to look at this and decide what needs to change in the HTML to allow us to be able to put some of these things that are done structurally in HTML in a position where they're done with styles so we can manipulate them for our mobile site. So I'm going to start off right here on this unordered list here, which has the bullet items. Let's just take a quick peek at it so we can understand it. These guys right here, okay, these are all just straight images in a list, okay. So what I'm going to do is, clearly that's not going to work for us. Two reasons for it, okay. One, it's HTML, so I need to change these graphics to be smaller versions of these graphics. And second, if you look again at the mock-up, so here I have my mobile mock-up here, you'll notice that not only do we have images in the next one, but we have the word for that category appearing. So right now, if I go back into my HTML, we don't have those words. They're not part of the HTML. So what we're going to do is we're going to need to write this out, okay? So I'm going to do the first one. I'm going to explain it, and then I'm going to propagate this out. Now this is going to be a little bit of a throwback to the class that we just finished about CSS sprites, okay? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go in here, and instead of having this image, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put an anchor tag in, because this is a link after all, so it should have an anchor tag, right? And I'll say ahref equals quote, and I'm just going to put a hashtag for now. We don't need it to actually be a functional link, okay? And then I'm going to put in my closing anchor tag, right? And then I'm going to put the word electronic. I am going to have to probably put a span around this so I can hide this, right? So now this is how each of your links are going to look. So right now, if I delete this one line here and leave the other ones, right, and I save this, right, and I bring it up in here, you'll see now that's what we get replaced with. So the first graphic has disappeared, and I get this electronic right here, okay? So now before I proceed doing this to all of them, what I want to do is I want to go in and I want to write the style that we need to be able to bring this graphic back. Okay, so all my styles are now in my external style sheet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my CSS here, and I'm going to try to keep this orderly. So I'm going to insert it kind of right where everything is. So here's my main section. There's the H1, which is the big words, right? Here's the UL, which is fine. Okay, and there's my LI, and then that's probably where I should write everything, right? So if I go in here and put in, let's say, main, right? And I will say anchor. Now there's a couple things that we're going to need to do here, okay? First things first, an anchor tag is an inline tag, right? So we may need to make that to kind of behave like it's a block level element. So what we're going to do is we're going to add display block. This display block will designate that any anchor tags inside the main tag will actually display like a block level element. Okay, so that's our first part. Now that we have that set up, what we need to do is we need to go in and give this some dimension. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and I'm going to make them 90. So I'm going to say, let's give each one a width of 90 pixels and a height of 90 pixels, right? Okay, now just so I can see it, because right now I can't see it, what I'm going to do is I am going to say border 1 pixel, solid, and red. You know me. I love doing the borders so I can see my structure. So I'll save this all. Now I want to note something here. You should probably start getting into the habit of saving all, especially now that we're working between HTML and CSS and working with multiple files. You should really get into the habit of saving all, because sometimes you might make a change in one file, switch over to the index, and then switch back and not realize you didn't save it, right? So whenever you're going to preview it in a browser, you should get into the habit of doing save all. That way all the files that are currently open will be saved, okay? So now right now, this is in preview mode already. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this up really quick, okay? And I can see, I'll reload it, there's my red border, and I do notice that the dimensions, right, are there. So I have that size, right? I still have that word electronic there, which right now is not going to be a problem. We can get rid of that. But what I want to do is I want to get the graphic on here, okay? So I'll say background, image, and we'll say URL, parenthesis. Now I have all my folders in a folder called images here, and this is the electronic one, I believe. So I'm going to say electronic.png, right? And then I'll add on that just to make my life easier. Background, repeat, no repeat. Okay, that's going to make it so that the background graphic doesn't tile. So I'm just going to do a save all on that, and then I'll bring my file up here, and I can see now there's my actual background image, right? And now it's also a link. I still got that text there, okay? But this is the process we're going to do to convert this over to make sure that we can have this graphic being put on the screen as a style instead of being put on the screen as a non-style. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do one more just so you can follow it, okay? And then I'm going to let you finish the rest before we move on to the next video exercise, okay? Because it's really just repeating the same operation over and over again. So what we'll do, here we are, okay? Now there is one thing that we're going to encounter, which is going to become a problem, okay? And I'll explain this to you. In essence, right now we're putting the background image on all anchor tags, right? So as we convert all of these over, each anchor tag inside of main is going to have that background image. Now that's not really what we want. We want each one to have a unique background image. So what I'm thinking we're going to have to do is something along these lines. I'm thinking we're going to have to make these two styles into IDs. Put the hashtag in, and I will say electronic. Right? Now, I'm just trying to keep my styles all lined up. Don't worry me. And then I'm just going to cut these two out, right? I'll say edit cut, and I'll put them in as part of this style, right? Now, that's not the end of it. I still need to go back to my index area here, and that means I'm going to have to add to this list item the ID equals quote electronic, right? So I will save all, and then I'll bring this back up in my area here, okay? And I'll refresh it, and you'll see now, once again, my image is on the background. I still got to get rid of this, okay? But essentially, I see now I have the ability to change this and manipulate it with media queries, whereas before I didn't have that ability when it was put in with a structural image tag, okay? So that being said, there is one more thing I want to do in the style sheet before we move forward. I want to put in here, we're going to have to write a bunch of styles, okay, to do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the actual text at this point. So I'll say main space span, and I'll say display none. So while I'm here, I'll also take out this border that I had in here just so I could see the structure, right? And basically now you'll see when I refresh this, okay, there's my actual item. It's in place with a style. Okay, these still aren't links yet. Okay, and that being that, it's all good. Now there is one more thing I want to do just to make the web part of this a little better. This is screaming for some kind of hover effect, right? So what I'm going to do is I am going to say, okay, now that we have electronic, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to say, let's put in electronic, but I'll put in colon hover. Right, so that means whenever I hover over the ID electronic, let's put this image in place instead of this one. So I took the liberty of building out some rollover images for this exercise. I have them in, well, we'll do URL. I have them in the images folder here, and they're the name of the original graphic with over on it. So I'm going to pick the one images electronic over ping, right? And what we'll do is we'll put that here, okay? And I'm just going to say save all. I'm going to go back to my HTML file, and this is something you got to be wary about too. Now that you're working on an external style sheet, you're going to make this mistake where you go to preview it and you'll find that you can't preview from the style sheet. You can only preview from the HTML. So that's something to keep in mind, okay? Save all just to be sure, right? Now there's my refresh here, okay? And now you'll see when I hover over the electronic icon, I get that little change of graphic where the actual icon is black instead of it being white. And so that gives me a nice little interactive effect on this site, which it didn't have before. Okay, in the mobile version, we'll have to address that and deal with it because there's no hovering on a cell phone. You can't float your finger over the screen of the smartphone, but it does enhance the web version, so we kind of want to do it. Okay, so like I said, I promised that I said I would do one more and show how to do it again before moving forward. Okay, so I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to let you do the remaining 3 items in the navigation. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to duplicate this like so. Right, I'll paste it right underneath like so. I'll change this one to, here it is right here, we'll call it hip hop as the ID, right? The image, we're going to say right here, the text that's going to appear is going to be hip hop. Okay, and remember to delete this, because if you don't, you're going to have some issues. Now we're going to have to write a style for ID hip hop, but it's going to be very similar to the style we had before. Okay, so what I'll do is I will just go in here and delete this like so, and then I'll go back to my style sheet here. Okay, and I'm going to write 2 styles right here. Okay, the other stuff will take care of itself because this is on the anchor tag, this is on the span. These guys will take care of themselves. I need to take care of these individual guys, right? The individual IDs that we're applying to each one so that we can put a unique graphic on each one of the anchors in this list, right? So what I'll do here is I'll just go here and I'll paste these 2, but I'm going to name it what? Hip hop. another one for the hover state. And then I really just need to change the graphic, okay? So what we're going to do here is we're going to go here, and we're going to delete that image, right? And I'll say slash, and then we're doing hip hop, right? So here's my hip hop, right? And then I have to do the same thing for hip hop over, okay? I did notice that the graphic might be off, the name might be off. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to look in the directory and make sure I pick the right graphic here, right? So there's hip hop over, okay? And basically it looks good. So I will now save all on this and bring it back up in my browser here. Do a refresh. Now the way you'll know it's working, all you gotta do is hover over it and you'll know immediately. Alright? Okay, that's working too, right?